Hello everybody, this is Axter from the Players Council, and today we are going to take a look at the balanced deck. This deck is a core of the Lord of the Rings trading card game on all formats. What that means is that you will come across this type of deck most often. We are currently looking at a game between me on one of my alternative accounts versus D. Staley, one of the players of the World Championship. He played in the group stage and is definitely one of the strongest opponents you can come across on GAMP. Now, what is iconic for this type of deck? Well, you can see that the Shadow was able to do something even though our opponent has a very strong strategy against us. And the Free Peoples does its thing. It is also able to win against a lot of strategies, and therefore you are able to secure the win by both Free Peoples as well as the Shadow. So if you are looking for something that is very reliable and can win on both sides, then the balanced type of deck is what you will be looking for. Now let's take a look back at what we have already gone through. So that was the all-in Shadow strategy. Notice that it has 30 cards in each side. And then the Free Peoples oriented strategy, which also had 30 cards. Now this is of course not a written rule, but generally the decks that focus only on one side of the deck winning tend to have fewer cards than those of the balanced deck. I'm going to take a look at the balanced deck which I have prepared to show. So here you can see the saved Gondor in Decipher's movie, and the idea is simple. You are supposed to put a company on the dead pile, take a couple Gondor cards that will boost up your Free Peoples, and then run and try to be on the 9th side as fast as possible. On the other hand, you have Morgul Swarm, which uses its cards to exhaust the Ringbearer by Gollum Darkest Darkness or Morgul Destroyer, Morgul Brute, and in general putting Swarm on the battlefield so that the alternative Ringbearers get assigned and make the situation very uncomfortable for the Free Peoples player that we are playing against. So both of these parts of the deck are able to secure the win, and it depends on the deck your opponent is playing, that you choose how you are going to most probably win the game. That means if I play Saved Gondor and my opponent has Morgul Swarm, which is, we can say, an unfavorable matchup for us as the Free Peoples player here, but he plays Dwarfs. So what we can do is that we can push with our Shadow, our Morgul Swarm, which has a good matchup against Dwarfs as well, and therefore win by the Shadow side. An important thing to say is that especially in movie block and fellowship block, it is much more common that the Free Peoples survives the 9th side, or that the Free Peoples dies in some attempt to chase down the opposing Free Peoples. So it's all Free Peoples oriented on these two formats. It is more rare to see all in Shadow strategies secure the win, or in general some kind of beat down to wear down the fellowship and secure the win, because it is generally much harder. The minions do not stay on the battlefield, they are discarded at the end of each turn. That means that the Free Peoples stays where it is, but the Shadow doesn't. So it's quite logical that we see more Free Peoples wins than the Shadow wins. As you can see here, I noted before that the number of cards in all-in strategies is usually 30 to 30. Now in this balanced deck, it is 33 to 33. Why is that? Well, because if you are looking for a Free Peoples that is able to win against as many Shadow strategies as possible, you need to squeeze in a lot of anti-cards, such as Roll of Thunder against artifacts and possessions, mostly possessions, then something against conditions, that is very important, and some other stuff that generally helps you survive against swarm, survive against corruption, etc. And the shadow, on the other hand, also needs a couple cards because the game is expected to take long, and you don't want your deck to run out faster than the game is over, because of course then you wouldn't have anything to play and your opponent would just run and win. So that is the core of the balanced deck. I'm going to show you some other decks that look like that. The deck which I showed at the start of this video was my Dwarfs Hillman build, where the Free Peoples is very resilient. It is able to withstand most of the shadows in the format, depending on the draw. Little bit problematic matchups for you could be Golem, Hillman, Morgul Swarm and Corsairs, but the rest is definitely doable. It's like 50-50 against everything, which is something that I like, because then the better player comes at the top at the end of the game. The shadow has one very weak spot, and that is Elendil, because he's able to liberate sites like there's no tomorrow, but besides that you are able to destroy, let's say, everything in the format. You might have a little bit difficult matchup against telepathy and some other things, but in general what is considered to be the meta of movie block, you are going to do just fine. So how that works is, you start a game, you go first or second, doesn't really matter, and you see that your opponent is playing Elendil. Well, then you try your best to run fast with your Free Peoples and stop your opponent with the shadow however you can, even though it is not very easy. So that's one example of a balanced deck, how your strategy can look when you're planning the deck building. Now, Ents and Sudden Archery, another balanced deck, so that means you are able to win by both sides. This is probably more consistent than the Dwarfs and Hillman, because you don't really have any bad matchup as is. The Free Peoples, it is known for not having too many counter cards. I see that there are 4 shadow cards missing in the deck, and that is probably going to be Enquia twice, one more Rallying Call and one more Ships of Great Drought. Oh no, my bad. It is 4 times Seasoned Leader. That's it. So the hardest thing that you can come across is probably Dauntless Hunter with the shadow, but you can deal with that as well. You can at least stop it, and you can wait for some bold double moves and punish them with those big fierce minions and exhausting, for example, Sam. That would be very uncomfortable for the Dauntless Hunter player. And the Free Peoples, as I mentioned, there aren't many counters to this, so you are able to just play Saved from the Fire, and from there you have a very easy sweep, because you play all those essential counter cards, which are often to be seen in non-wizard decks, because Gandalf is just awesome. He's able to counter everything, and he's very reliable. The last one that I'm going to show you is going to be Telepathy with Besiegers. So the whole deck works around the 4-armed and Manager of Wizards combo. For those who don't know, you use Gandalf's ability to put 3 cards on the top of the deck. The thing is that you select which cards those are going to be and in which order you place them there. It takes a bit of practice, but once you know how to do it, you can put there, for example, the second Glimpse of Fate, because one is already on board. Let's say Ground, because you are playing your Free People, so you don't want to have it in hand now. And the last card that you put on top is Sauron. Then you play 4-armed, reveal Sauron from the top, and make a minion -18, which is mostly enough to overwhelm anything you come across. The Shadow strategy works on the engine strategy. That means that you put a lot of these conditions and possessions on board, you make your trolls cheaper, then put a bunch of them on board, and that usually is enough to win against your opponent. Now, what could be the weak spots of these decks? So, the Free Peoples, It doesn't really have too many counters, but we can say that anything that is able to stop you generally is difficult to deal with. That could be, let's say, Morgul Swarm. It could be potentially the Sovereigns, depends on how good your draw for healing cards is. You cannot survive against Sovereigns without Shadow Between. As for the Shadow, it depends on the build and on what the meta is. But if your opponent runs, for example, 4 copies of Stand Against Darkness, then you know that you are going to lose 4 trolls, basically for nothing, and that is never good. So again, you start the game, you see what your opponent is playing, and you immediately should get some kind of idea based on your experience that you have gained while practicing with your deck, if you are going to win by Free Peoples or by Shadow, and then you adjust your strategy accordingly. So that is the balanced deck and what it looks like. To sum it up, the core difference between this and the 2 all-in previous strategies which I mentioned, here you are able to win by both sides. And let's say that you see that your opponent has Free Peoples that you can never beat with your Shadow if he moves once, so you push with your Free Peoples so that he either dies by doing some crazy double moves trying to run you down, or you are going to win by surviving the 9th site. That is the general goal that you should have in mind while playing balanced deck. As I mentioned before, this is the most common and the most consistent choice of deck that people usually go for, because they either do not believe that their Shadow all-in strategy or their Free Peoples all-in strategy is going to win as many times as there are games in a tournament in a row, or they just don't have the time to practice with it, to invest the time in training with it, and that is the reason why they select the safer choice, the balanced deck. That is everything that I wanted to say about this type of deck in this video, and next time we are going to take a look at some general Free Peoples tips, how to survive longer, how to build the deck more effectively, so that we do not have those bad and sad games when the opponent practically demotivates us and we feel like our Free Peoples loses against everything while Free Peoples of others survives everything.